Over the past couple of days, I've received a bunch of DMs and a couple of emails from people saying, have you seen the information that's going around that was leaked out by a politician in government who's outlining the COVID restriction strategies starting to take place from now into Q4 of next year, which brings us to this time next year, what is going to take place. And for those of you who may not seen it, it is, of course, more strict restrictions and lockdowns that are going to be taking place, as far as to say that by Q3, so spring of 2021, we will not even be able to move within our own cities. We will be required to stay put, that we won't even be able to move within our own cities, and that the military is going to be within major cities and on highways to implement checkpoints to ensure the restrictions of these travels. And the questions I keep getting asked is, don't you think that this is a little extreme and hard to believe? And regardless of whether or not this politician really did release it or not, the reality is that things are going to get a lot worse. More of our freedoms are going to be stripped from us. They're going to be removed. And every single day that we don't stand up and fight, that we don't push back, that we don't demand our freedoms, this is what is going to be coming down the pipeline. Right now in Canada, the federal government is planning to implement by spring of next year isolation facilities, aka isolation sites, concentration sites. Think about what that sounds like. I'm going to read to you. This is on the federal website. I'm going to put the links in so you can go do your own research. You don't need, aka isolation sites, concentration sites. Think about what that sounds like. I'm going to read to you. This is on the federal website. I'm going to put the links in so you can go do your own research. You don't need to take what I'm saying as truth. You really should go do your own research. The government of Canada is considering engaging a third-party service provider for federal quarantine isolation sites that will be used to house and care for the people for public health and other related requirements associated with COVID-19 pandemic response. The government is seeking feedback from current service providers about potential options for standing up, operating, and managing all of the services associated with these sites. And they're looking for RFIs, they're looking for requests for information, they're looking for RFPs, requests for proposal, to have third-party companies to operate this. Friends in the United States, look up FEMA camps. This is pretty much the same thing that is being talked about that is going to be rolled out across both of our countries. And there is going to be legislation that is going to support the ability for them to be able to remove and detain you or your child or yourself from your children to put you into one of these camps. Right now in the US, there's that HR 6666. Little side note, 666 is the mark of the beast. Not a good correlation. They could have named that anything else, but is it a coincidence? I don't think so. You can go look into it. It sounds pretty evil what we're talking about anyways. And in the Public Health Act in Alberta, this authority has been given to health officials to basically remove and detain you into one of these isolation sites. Guys, we need to wake up. For those of you who have said the government has our best interests and they're looking out for us, for people who are still watching the mainstream media and believe it to be truth and that the media wouldn't lie, even though it's run by about 5 corporations that own over 98% of all of the media and are being fed what they want us to believe. You turn on CNN, you could not be more afraid of what is going on in the world if you are watching CNN. And if you have time tonight to sit at home and watch Netflix for an hour and watch your favorite program, I am begging you to pay attention to what happened when this member of parliament brought this very conversation up to the premier during question period and he got dismissed. I'm going to Gonna play the clip. Please watch this.
The next question, the member for Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is to the Premier. In my supplemental question yesterday, I asked this government if the people of Ontario should prepare for internment camps. In September, the federal government posted a call for expressions of interest for contractors to supply, provide and manage quarantine isolation camps throughout every province and every territory in Canada. These quarantine isolation camps, however, are not limited to people with COVID, but provide a wide latitude for many people to be detained. Surely this government is aware of the intentions to build these isolation camps from coast to coast. And my question to the Premier is, how many of these camps will be built, and how many people does this government expect to detain?
Question. Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is very true that when people leave the country and when they come back in, that the province is suggesting, and the federal government, in cooperation with the federal government, we are suggesting that people isolate themselves. That has been a practice that has been very successful, not only here in the province of Ontario, but across Canada. And we will, of course, be redoubling our efforts to make sure that the people of the province of Ontario remain safe, Mr. Speaker. So if the member is referring to the fact that that one of the public health policies is that when you return from a jurisdiction outside of the province of Ontario or from another country, that you isolate yourself for 2 weeks, I would suggest that has been a good policy that has been working. In fact, this House has been doing the same thing since we came back. We are working in cohorts to make sure that the Legislative Assembly can continue to operate. That's why we have 2 separate cohorts, Mr. Speaker.
Response.
And with the cooperation of the official opposition, that is why all members of the Independents have been excluded from that cohort, because we want them to be able to participate in debate. So we will continue to do everything in our power to make sure that this House continues, but that the people of the province of Ontario and Canada are kept safe.
Supplementary question.
Again, back to the Premier. Here's the RFP, and in the RFP it uses clear language to express that these camps can be used for a broad spectrum of people, not limited to travellers. Indeed, it doesn't even mention international travellers. It's just a broad latitude of people. And I'll send over the copy of the RFP after. So your government must be in negotiations and aware of these plans to potentially detain and isolate citizens and residents of our country and our province. So, Speaker, to the Premier, where will these camps be built? How many people will be detained? And for what reasons?
Questions.
For what reasons can people be kept in these isolation camps? And I'd like to have the Premier assure the people of Ontario.
Member, take a seat. The next question.
He got dismissed. He got shut down. They would not answer his questions about the facility sites that are being implemented and are being constructed right now across 9 different cities across Canada, including Toronto, where I am, places like Calgary and in Montreal. Guys, this is happening. The government is using COVID to push forward their control totalitarian agenda. This is all because of the flu. You do not implement isolation sites for something that is the flu. Why didn't they do this for SARS or H1N1, which was worse than this and had a higher fatality rate than COVID does? Why didn't they shut down the world for that? Think about that for a moment. Tuberculosis, pneumonia. If you go onto the WHO website right now, the WHO website says that over 10 million people globally got tuberculosis. And of those 10 million people, 1.4 million people died last year of tuberculosis. Guys, that is higher than the 1.1 million people who have died globally from COVID right now. Think about that for a moment. Why didn't they shut us down last year for tuberculosis? Why didn't they ground planes, cancel schools, completely shutting down our economy, setting up isolation camps. Why didn't they do that last year? Did you even know that 1.4 million people died last year from tuberculosis? Were you afraid? Or pneumonia that the WHO reports 2.5 million people globally died from, and it is also the single largest infectious death rate of children in under 5 that claimed the lives of almost 1 million children, over 800,000 children in just 1 year. Why aren't we reporting on this daily? Why isn't the media covering tuberculosis and pneumonia cases from every single country around the world? Why are we not seeing it on the media? What is it about COVID that is that much more deadly? Because it's not, and we've seen those stats. You also have the WHO organization and other doctors and scientists globally from around the world stating that this is not a pandemic. In Canada, our long-term care minister has said that it is comparable to the bad flu season. This is not a pandemic. In Canada, our long-term care minister has said that it is comparable to the bad flu season. Does not make sense. Our freedoms, our liberties are being tested, they're being stripped, and Canadian, we need to wake up on this. We need to speak up on this. We need to stand up, because what is coming down the pipeline, if you can't say no to a mask right now, you just wait till what is coming when they start rolling out these isolation facilities and people start getting removed from their home and they start removing you from your children or your child from you. This is the reality that is going to be coming if we don't join in with the doctors, with the scientists, with people around the world that are standing up and saying no longer, we want our freedoms back and we are willing to fight till the end. So spread this forward. We need to get this message out. This is what's coming down the pipeline. Let's fight together.